So before I even baked the cake, I had to make marshmallow fondant using marshmallows and powdered sugar. I followed a YouTube video on how to make marshmallow fondant and it was really simple and easy. Turned out really good. Made the fondant, placed it in the refrigerator 2 days prior to making my cake, and took the fondant out of the refrigerator when I was ready to bake the cake so that it could come up to room temperature and be easier to roll out the fondant to place on top of the cake. So here are my two 9 by 13 sheet cakes that I baked after I placed them in the refrigerator. I then took the sheet cakes, placed buttercream in between the two, and placed the sheet cakes on top of each other, top facing down, so the bottom is facing up. The cake has a little crack in it at the top, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to cut it off anyways. So I then took a serrated knife and I cut off the edges on all four sides to make the cake more square on the sides. Then I placed my template on top of the cake to make sure that it was wide enough to form the shape that I needed for the bottle. Then I took the knife and cut off the top of the cake. This is just going to level the cake out and to get rid of my little crack at the bottom of, or at the top of the cake. So now I'm just cutting to level the cake out even more. Now using my template as a guide, I placed the template on top of the cake and I used a small paring knife to cut the shape of the cake that I wanted. When you're cutting the cake, you really want to make sure you use a very sharp knife because that helps aid in the shaping process. Now I take the knife and I tilt it at an angle so that I can define the bottle top shape a little bit more. And I just continued to cut the bottle until it reached the appropriate shape that I wanted for the Patron bottle. Now using a non-stick rolling pin, I rolled out my fondant to the appropriate length that I needed to cover the entire cake. Before you lay the fondant over your cake, you want to put icing over the cake, which is called crumb coating. And I forgot that step initially after I laid the fondant over the cake. And then I took the fondant off the cake and put my crumb coating on, then put the fondant back over the cake. So you don't want to forget that step. So once the fondant is placed over the cake, you just use your fingers to mold the fondant to the shape of your cake. And it's really hard to do with this bottle because of the shape of it, but eventually, after a little playing around, you'll get the job done. Then I placed the edible Patron bottle labels that I got from my local baker onto the cake, and also a green ribbon that I picked up from my craft store. Now using an edible silver fondant coloring, I used a clean white sponge and painted the Patron bottle to make it that nice silver color. I did 2 coats. This is the bottle after the first coat. And this is the finished bottle after the second coat. To make the cork, I rolled up some leftover cake into a nice little ball, stuck it in the freezer for about 10 to 15 minutes, and that made the cork. So here's the finished product of the cake. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it was easy for you guys to follow. So thank you guys for watching.